My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of Shadow of the Tomb Raider on PS4. This is a game that I heard some really mixed things about, so I went in with lower expectations, but it wasn't as bad as I was expecting. Still not on the same level of Rise of the Tomb Raider, but decent enough. It does start off in a very terrible fashion though, because the beginning of this game just has way too many cutscenes. Like, I was just waiting to be able to play the game, and then you're able to play it for like 1 minute, and then it's another bunch of cutscenes, and then you're just walking around this city, and I'm just like, get going already, I want to play the game. So the beginning of this game, I absolutely hated, but once it got going, it did get a bit better. I do love the inciting incident of how Laura's greed sets off a series of disasters, like the tsunami at the very beginning of this game. But I just don't think they lean into that idea nearly enough, and I would have loved to see it explored, like how she might feel responsible for what happened and if she felt any bit of guilt. But we don't really get that. What we get instead is yet another generic adventure story that, quite frankly, I wanted more from. Like, it's the third game in a trilogy. You feel like they might do something a bit different, they might dive deeper into the characters, but it is more of the same. The characters continue to be as surface level as they come. There's no real themes or ideas present here. There's no twists or turns with the story, and it's just very disappointing. I wanted more. And I do feel like it's two very different games. Like, you've got this section where you're teamed up with Jonas and you're facing off against Trinity. But then you've got this other section of the game where it's more enriched in the Mayan culture, which I do really like, but the two different tones feel so distinct from each other that it doesn't feel like a cohesive vision behind this game. And I also do find that there's some really bad exposition. The lore that's getting explored here just isn't all that compelling, and especially when it comes to the final fight, it just feels like the first PS4 Tomb Raider game all over again. But my favorite part of this game is when it gets a bit darker and you're in this underground section with all these blood and guts and bones. And this was easily when I was most invested. It had a nice creepy atmosphere with some really great sound design, and I was actually on edge quite a few moments. It reminded me of the first Uncharted in the best kind of way, and I would have loved more of that here, because once you get past that section, the game never reaches those heights again. But let's get talking about the characters, first with Lara Croft, and I just don't like this character as much as I feel like I should. She's just a very dull, surface level character. Like, I mean, she's fine enough for this game, but there's nothing special there. Like, you play Uncharted and Nathan Drake has 1,000 times more charisma. He's much more likable. He's funnier. He's better written. Or you play a game like Last of Us where Joel has so much more depth. And you're just seeing what video games can accomplish with their characters. And it feels like you're getting the bare minimum here. Then you've also got Jonas as a supporting character, and I think he's really boring, and he just kind of shows up when he's needed. He doesn't add all too much. He's just the guy who's always there for her, always helps her no matter what, and because of that, it just feels like he's lacking in his own distinct character. Then you've got Abby, who's a new supporting character here, and she gets introduced, and she shows up a few more times, but she has no presence at all. I don't remember a single thing about her. Then you've got Yunowitu, who I just found to be very bland and forgettable, and she has a kid who's also bland and forgettable, like mother, like son. And then the villains here are just so terribly written. Like, Trinity seems to be the Cobra to Lara Croft's G.I. Joe, like their whole arch nemesis, and they just don't have much of a presence for the majority of this game. I kept forgetting they were even a part of the story. And then you've got this one guy named Itzili, who we see at the end of the game, and while we see him, I'm just like, have we seen this character before this point? Because I'm not sure if we have. He was very lame and forgettable. You've got this other guy named Rourke, who is just an incredibly dark character. There's one moment where I remember he was present, and then I'm just like, was he in the rest of this game at all? So the villains don't stand out in any way. There's no constant threat, and they should have been. So I just thought for the most part the character writing was very weak. But when it comes to the gameplay, I really do like exploring. You know, the walk climbing does get repetitive when you have your axe out, but just about every other element works for me when you're running and then you throw your grappling hook and you swing around and then you climb for a bit and then you swing around some more. All that stuff is really fun. But fighting people was fun as well. I do like mixing it up between attacking people using stealth or straight on. That's really fun. I will say that in most games where the bow and arrow is a weapon, that's my go-to weapon. That's what I use the most. And I almost never used the bow and arrow in this game. I found it to be very weak. And then they add this element where you can create a fear arrow where you shoot someone and then they shoot a bunch of people. And I thought that was really lame. I do hate the moment early on where you fight the jaguar. That just took way too long, was really frustrating, and I was really worried that was going to be a bigger part of this game, but thankfully it's not. There's some annoying moments where you have to avoid piranhas, but they're not in the game all too much ever. And I will say that the chase scenes in this game were very bad. Like, I loved them in the first two, but here they felt a lot more clunky. Like, especially one where you're getting chased through this village. It just didn't feel cinematic by any means. So that was disappointing. And the puzzles are atrocious. The way I am with puzzles is that I like it when I can do them, but where they're still challenging enough to the point where I feel satisfied in accomplishing them. And I just found they were way too frustrating here. Like, there's one early on where you apparently need to know Mayan numbers, and that was really stupid. And then the last puzzle, I think, is nothing more than trial and error, which got really annoying. I do know that they kind of tell you what to do, but I'd say that's a stretch. The technical elements for this game are for the most part pretty good. I think the graphics look quite great. There's this one section where you can see all this lava and this city on fire, and I thought that looked really great. I do think it was visually a bit too dark in moments. And I hated picking new scales when you're at the campfire and you're just like, okay, what scale do I want next? A very difficult menu to navigate, and I just didn't care about what new scale I got because I hated that menu that much. And I did like some of the music, especially the last bit of music before the credits roll, and there's this one flashback that has this playful sounding music, and I really enjoyed that. But I didn't touch on it earlier when I was talking about the story, but the flashback was completely unneeded. Like, I don't think it added anything at all. But look, this game is a mixed bag. It has lots of stuff I didn't like at all, especially the jaguars and the puzzles. I didn't care for that at all. The characters are incredibly dull and boring. The story is nothing great. But as a generic adventure game, it's fine enough. I had enough fun exploring and fighting people that I am in the end able to recommend it and give it a 6 out of 10. I will have a spoiler review for this game where I talk more in depth about the story, but yeah, it's not as bad as I've heard, but it's not great either. But have you played Shadow of the Tomb Raider? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.